Okay, I'm going to do a quick demo here to show how to use Photomatix Pro from hdrsoft.com. You can download a free trial. When you launch Photomatix Pro, all you get is this window here. In fact, let me close this when you get it out of the way. You click on Load Bracketed Photos. I have the files already in a folder. Obviously, I'm speeding this up a little bit. I've taken 5 pictures with the G2. I choose all the pictures. I say Load. Works the same exact way on a PC. All these buttons here, I usually have these checked, okay, because I want it to reduce, I want it to align the images. Obviously, I'm shooting these handheld. I want it to reduce ghosting artifacts, which are those white lines that you get around HDR that make it look like an HDR. Reduce noise in the shadows. Obviously, when you're creating an HDR, you can get a lot of noise in the shadow. And reduce chromatic aberrations, which are kind of like purple fringing. But right now I'm going to turn all these off because it makes it run a lot faster. If I turned them all on, we'd be staring at the screen here for about 2 minutes. So this generates an HDR image. Okay, there's our HDR image. In version 4 of this program, or is it 3? I can't remember which. The current version. You click on the buttons down. What I do is click on the buttons down here at the bottom to find the one that I like. There's the kind of extreme HDR that people like. It's kind of cool. I think this one's a little over the top. But you just go through them, and the black and white is beautiful, I think. Okay. But I frequently start with the default because I like to use the sliders over here to adjust it. Now, there are 2 adjustment modes at the top here. There's tone mapping. Tone mapping gives you more choices here, a lot more things you can do to different parts of the picture. Exposure fusion is meant for if you want to keep the picture looking more realistic. Basically gives you less choices, lets you kind of, you know, you can't mess with the picture as much. We're going to go into tone mapping. These things can be kind of intimidating. So the only ones I really use are strength, which I usually put about 80. The higher means the sort of stronger the shadows will come out and things. As you go lower here, it looks more like one of the original pictures. As you go higher, it brings out more of the shadows and knocks down the highlights. I like 80. I leave saturation alone. I usually leave luminosity alone, although sometimes I'll adjust it if it's a dark image. I like micro contrast. Micro contrast just kind of does what it says. It just kind of brings contrast out in the whole picture, in edges. The important one is smoothing, though. The further you go to the right, the more it looks like your original picture. The further you go to the left, the more it looks like an HDR. So this is where the artistic part comes in, I think. You can also check light mode and have buttons to do this. Again, the higher you go, the higher to the right, the more it looks realistic. The lower you go, the more it looks like an HDR. So I'm just going to do something like high right in there. I kind of like that. I don't touch white point, black point. I don't do gamma. I don't do temperature or any of these. I try to keep it simple. I like micro smoothing. Micro smoothing, if you have noise in the shadows, it will help take it out. So most of the time I kind of leave it there because I try to shoot these at 100 or 200 ISO. When I'm done, I click Process Image, and it's going to apply the corrections I just made to the image and show it to us on the screen. Okay, there's our final image. Now this is really neat. In Photomatix Pro, when you go to Save As, to save this image, okay, I'm just going to put it on the desktop. I choose JPEG. You can choose a TIFF if you want to make it uncompressed. You can choose the program that you want to open it in. And so when you save it, it'll save a copy where you tell it and open it at the same time in Photoshop. So I already have one with this name because I've practiced this, so I'm going to say replace it. It opens Photoshop, and there's my image. And then in Photoshop, what I do is it still looks a little flat and dark, which is actually kind of how I want it to look when I bring it in here. So you can do this in Corel Paint. You go to curves or levels, whatever you like to do to adjust the contrast of it. I tend to brighten it up to make up for that little bit of darkness. And I bring, basically what I'm doing here with the curve, I'm just increasing the contrast of this image, okay? And then what I'll do is I'll go to color balance, and I'll tend to warm it up a little bit. You know, as we've talked before, pictures seem to usually come out kind of cold, okay? That's very similar to my final image. I save it, and sometimes I'll do some local things like that. But just this is mainly a, what do you call it, Photomatix Pro test.